Hello, I'm Dick Miller, and I'm here with Senator Jeff Smith. And Jeff and I came in just a few minutes ago, and it's been raining all morning, and it continues on.
We're here on Friday the 13th, so if you, when you see this, you might remember Friday the 13th, a big storm going across the state of Wisconsin, and we're getting a lot of rain.
You didn't need to remind me of that, but I haven't seen any black cats, so I guess we're safe. We want to visit today regarding some of the happenings that are going on in the state, particularly in the Senate that Jeff is most acquainted with, though I'm sure he touches base with the other house from time to time to know what's going on. One of the things that I'm not particularly familiar with, and is either because I don't keep up with the news or whatever, but there is a interesting thing happening in discussion and proposals regarding the stadium in Milwaukee. And maybe you can bring us up to date what's going on, and maybe I can, as I come up with questions, I'll throw them at you, and maybe you can try to answer them, though I know some of them are tough.
Yeah, well, you just threw the first pitch. I'll take a swing at it.
Okay.
Okay? I see that we're getting into baseball here. So the package, let me see, I want to make sure I get the numbers right too. The package that has been introduced by the Republican majority is a proposal for $613.5 million, not including tax exemptions that would be tax money going into the Brewers Stadium to keep them in Milwaukee. $411 million from this plan would come from the state, and $203 million coming from local governments for the team. Now, the $411 million, and I repeat this often, is that you'll hear from the authors of this bill that we collect about $400 million from baseball players every year. So, or maybe it's over the course of this contract. I don't know, but that's the analogy or the equation here. Mm-hmm. So they want to take that $400 million that they collect from baseball players and put it into this package. Now that seems pretty logical. Let's make the baseball players pay for it. But I want to remind folks, and I do it all the time, we're already collecting that money. And that's counted into our budget when we determine whether for law enforcement, roads, shared revenue, all those things that go back to pay for our bills. Once you take that out of that equation, we've got to backfill that, and it would be backfilled by you, the taxpayers. So it's a trade-off. It's kind of a red herring to actually say we're taking the money that we collect from ball players. Well, in fact, we're actually just taking it out of our budget and calling it the money we collect from ball players.
Well, what's interesting is you and I both recall when the new stadium was proposed that the neighboring counties had to collect taxes for that too. And there was a big to-do made about that.
Yeah.
Whereas this plan spreads it out over the whole state, not just the neighboring counties.
Yeah, it does. And something for why I ask, and I'm going to ask you now, and then we continue this conversation, because I want to make sure I get my numbers right here. For you to call my office, if you're listening to this, with your opinion on this project. Look up a little bit more. We're not going to probably hit all the details here today, but my office number is 608-266-8546, or email us as well, which is sen.smith@legis.wi.gov. I know after the show we're going to give you those numbers and that email address as well that you can write down and copy, because my office wants your opinion from this part of the state on what you think about a package to keep that stadium modernized and up to date. I get that, I understand that, but is it worth all that we're proposing putting into it?
Yeah, and I did ask, just before the show started, I asked Jeff a question that he'll probably check out now, but was not aware of the answer to it. And it's maybe not a proper or a question that's necessarily we need to know, but it's interesting, and that is since the baseball club utilized that stadium through the season, and you informed me too just a minute ago that they also sublease it and gain something from that. And the question I have is do they pay a rent, and or do we pay them to be there? It's probably neither here nor there in terms of this particular package, but it would be of interest.
Well, I think it's a really good question, because if nothing else, I don't want to send out an illusion that we're paying them to be there, because we're spending if we spend $600 million to keep them here. It sounds that way. I just don't know the number of what they pay to use that stadium and lease it. But I do know, and I had mentioned this to you already, Dick, before we came on the air, was that it bothers me that because part of this package, and the reason it's so high, is that the Brewers have asked us as a state to turn this into a year-round facility. Right now it's really built for summertime. They want to be able to, in the wintertime, sublease it, like you said, to conventions, concerts, things like that, where they can actually profit from it. That bothers me to some degree, that if it's our stadium and we want to make something like that out of it, then we should at least have a profit sharing agreement with them, so the state gets back money for every event that goes in there. That's my take on that. But again, I'm asking you as my constituents to let us know in my office what you really feel about that. I think I know where I'm leaning right now, and would certainly not be in support of the current bill as it is. But one other thing that has popped up in the last few days is that there's an amendment to this, I guess, that would actually return money to every county in the state based on their sales tax collections. And I wish I had brought that sheet with me that was handed me, that showed every county in the state. But I remember, like, Eau Claire County would have gotten back $138,000 in sales tax revenue that come back to the state. That's currently going the other way. And I think Buffalo County was in the like $18,000 or something like that. But Trempealeau County is probably somewhere in between there. But it's I don't know if that's enough to buy our vote on this, to move us into a favorable position. And I am actually myself a big Brewers fan. Followed them really closely this year, and disappointed with the way the season ended. But I also don't want to be held hostage over a situation like this. I think we got to be very careful about what our priorities are. And are the Brewers really at risk of moving out of Milwaukee, where they have such a tremendous fan base and things were really going well for them, and they're doing quite well, and I mean quite well financially as well. So I think we got to measure that no matter what they say. Are they really a risk to move?
Well, and you point out earlier that if this package would be approved and signed by the governor, there would be a potential shortfall in the general fund. But if they in turn buy our vote by sending $18,000 to Buffalo County and $30,000 to Trempealeau County, or whatever it may be, are we not creating even a bigger void?
Yeah.
And you have to raise it some other way. The old saying, you can't, you take it from one and give it to the other, and then you have a void on the first stage.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but if you are interested in either learning more or taking a position, get a hold of the senator and his office and give them your thoughts on this. This is a fairly long-term situation, as far as I can see. The lease on the park is good until, I think, is it 2030?
Right now, the current agreement goes through 2030, and then this new agreement would carry it over to 2050.
Okay.
I'm sure there's probably some reasons that the stadium needs some upgrades, but boy, originally the governor had proposed $290 million, and suddenly it popped up to over $600 million when the Republican majority chose to step in. So I just don't know. I don't know that it's that necessary. I know one thing, as an example, is they want a bigger scoreboard. I don't know why. I did go to one game this year there, and it's a pretty big scoreboard. You can't miss it, except that the suggestion been made to me by some of my Milwaukee colleagues that really all they want is a bigger scoreboard for more advertising that they can sell, so they can make more money. So that would be us subsidizing them to make more money on their scoreboard. Another thing to consider.
Yeah. Well, and most businesses build that into their budget. You know, if they want to increase their advertising, they find a way to do that. So I think, and this is perhaps not everyone would agree with me here, but I think oftentimes the professional teams can put a lot of pressure on a municipality or a state, and somehow we have to think for ourselves. You know, what's going to benefit the most people, and like you say, you support the Brewers being here, and certainly I think everybody in the state is pleased to have a professional team in the state. You know, it's a real resource, but they're a business that have to make a profit, and I understand that, and I'm sure you do too. But it has to be reasonable too.
Yeah. Well, and does it have to be on public dollars?
That's right.
So you bring up just one last good point, though, is that this is sort of happening all across the country.
Yes.
And we've seen it happen many places where they hold the city hostage over this. And they don't want to lose that benefit of having them in the city, and they make all these concessions. And right now, I think in 4 different cities, though, they're pushing back.
Yes.
Like we might want to do too. There aren't really a lot of great options out there for them where they're going to move. Major League Baseball has already promised 2 expansion teams, so that eliminates probably 2 important locations. And so where else are they going to go where they can build the fan base that they have, which they are in the top 5 in all of Major League Baseball for attendance and the base that they have. So I'm going to measure all of these things, and I don't want to. I'm sure there's something needs to be done, but is it this much? I don't know.
Yeah. Get a hold of the senator and his staff and let them know what you think. Moving on.
Yeah.
It was brought to my attention this week that there is a real effort to pass a number of pieces of legislation in regards to voting and voting education, voting access, and I understand you may be directly involved in this movement.
I am. I'm a lead author on some of these bills. We have a number of bills, and I'm actually on all of these bills as well. Voter protection, we call it democracy package for referendums and public hearings. We want to extend the option, and this is a bill that is near and dear to my heart, for voters to be able to have a voice on the ballot on moving important issues. Like a lot of states do, things that legislators they find are dragging their feet or not willing to listen to the voters. If the voters choose to pass legislation on their own, they should be able to do that. And we set parameters. You got to have a certain number of people who actually sign a petition to get it on the ballot, and then of course you got to reach certain levels to actually pass something. I mean, I don't want to become this California that has a number all these initiatives on their on their ballot. We don't have to go there, but I think we should have a nice balance here where voters have a greater voice.
So that would bring it up for a vote by the state,
Yeah.
everybody in the state,
Yeah.
and so that it is a what should I say? We are a representative government here. We have, but if we're not happy with the representation, this is an opportunity for the majority to speak up.
And you see it in other states.
Yes.
They also have opportunities for when they see bad legislation that's
Mm-hmm.
passed, and they can then they can voice their opinion at the ballot box if they get it on the ballot. So it's a good thing. I mean, I give you some examples. You see surveys all the time that come out on marijuana. For instance, medical marijuana has like an 80% rating all the time with voters, but yet we can't get our current gerrymandered majority to even have a debate on it. So that's an example. Or Medicaid expansion, Badger Care has also got that sort of support. And of course, gerrymandering itself. You know, time after time and after time, the public says, yes, we don't want legislators drawing their own maps. So those are the sorts of things that bring this sort of idea forward that, hey, it's time that the voters actually had a voice.
That's yeah. I think there, like you say, other states have found that to be so useful, and I think the key to this thing is the input they have, but it's not easy because the process is not made simple.
No.
Because you have to have a very huge number of people signing on to it before it
Sure.
goes.
And you have to be organized. But what's nice about it, to tell you the truth, is mostly it just sort of has that one element hanging over the head of your legislators that, you know, we better be listening.
Very good, yes.
And,
Yeah.
and we should pay attention to what people want us to do.
Then that would become more representative government, right?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
Yes, it would.
But that's just one part of this whole package, like I mentioned, but that one really resonates with me, and again, I'm a lead on that one. But campaign integrity is a big part of this as far as that, and like I said, voter protection and registering voters as well is a big part of it. So I argue, and this is also something I've been a strong advocate for a long time, that if a young man, once he turns 18, is mandatorily has to register for the draft, that same thing should automatically be registered to vote. So, and of course that's the way it is with the draft is young men, which is weird too these days, but it should be men and women who, once they reach the age to vote and they're eligible in every way, they should be automatically registered to vote. Shouldn't be an obstacle to be able to visit the ballot box.
Kind of explaining it to that young person, be they 16, 17, that this is expected, that you be a contributor or involved in your government.
Yeah, we can't drive them to the ballot box, but we
No.
can be sure that when they go to the ballot, when they go to vote, their name will be there and that they're eligible to vote. And in fact, now that you bring that up, another part of this package is for 16 and 17-year-olds, we would, through this bill, we would expect that we would be giving them the opportunity, allows them to register if they want to, so that they're ready to vote when they turn 18, and extend that right to vote in primary elections to voters that will be 18 by the time of that corresponding election. They may turn 18 between the primary and the election, and so we want to be sure that all those things are made a little easier for young people. We know how hard it is to take on adult responsibilities as it is. It might be one of the last things they're thinking of.
But it sounds like throughout these bills there is the same kind of message, and that is to open up opportunities, encourage people to exercise their responsibility to vote.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I think this you just mentioned integrity, campaign integrity. That's one thing that comes up frequently when we talk about how much money one can contribute, what groups can contribute, how it is handled, and so forth. And at present, it seems like a lot of that's pretty open-ended. You've got some doors that people can go through, or groups can go through and exercise. Well, I guess a good example, you and I have a vote. We each have one vote. And yet there are groups that, due to their money, seem to have many votes, don't they?
Yeah, in some ways, right?
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
Yeah. If you have more money, you have more power and influence on the elections, and that shouldn't be the case. And I understand, I don't have a lot of money, and I can't afford to contribute to campaigns either, but we want to, so I do have a whole section here just on that. Limit total political contributions from PACs, that's political action committees who do this, and eliminate provisions that allow political parties or legislative campaign committees from establishing a segregated fund. I know this, it takes a lot of explaining campaign funding, how that works, but a really big one here for me is something I've talked about for a long time, and that is issue ad disclosure. We have a little bit of different way where we have addressed it in these bills, but issue ads, as you know, are those ads that run. It's not from a candidate, it's not from a political party, it's from some group you've never heard of before, because usually it's made up for that particular year or that campaign or that issue, and you don't know who's actually paying for that. You need to know who's paying for that. And to tell you the truth, if people had their name on something, they would be a lot less likely to be filling you with misinformation or misleading information. And we'd have a lot more honest dialogue out there. And it's really important. That's where we get around to people with more money having more influence, because they don't report who is contributing to them. We need to know who's contributing to those unknown groups suddenly. My campaign, for instance, any individual candidate who campaigns has to report every individual that their name, address, and if they contribute anything over $10. And if they reach the $100 level, they got to report where they work even, and what their profession is. So, I mean, they're very stringent. Don't go after candidates and say they're pocketing money that's not true. Every penny has to be registered. But when it comes to those ads, not a drop. And people are contributing millions of dollars into those things. We need to know who that is.
Yeah, I think this is what I was leading you talking about earlier, is that your vote and my vote should count the same. And ours should count the same as someone down the road that perhaps has the ability to donate $1 million towards a particular candidate or a fund or an idea.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think you're right. If your name is attached to it, or your company name, or whatever it may be, that's going to make us aware, maybe somewhat, of their motivation.
Yep. So we're placing the same limits with our legislation on coordinated expenditures. That's another way of saying it, that we would put on candidates and groups. Also want to say that we prohibit corporations, co-ops, labor organizations, or federally recognized tribes from making a contribution to a segregated fund established by a political party or legislative campaign committee. We're not drawing a line and saying only, for instance, I'm a Democrat, we only want to limit conservative groups. No, we want to limit all groups and put them all on the same playing field, to be sure, because the truth is, as a candidate and as somebody who really wants to have an honest message out there, I want to be sure that my message gets out there, and I have control over who I am and how I'm represented. I don't want some group out there making something up even to benefit me.
Well, that could put a huge burden on you if you'd get elected, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
They could come back and put all kinds of pressure on you to do what they want done, though you may disagree with what they want done.
I don't really actually think they can pressure me, but they may think they can.
Well, but in some cases they could pressure some people.
Yeah.
Right. I think if you have a good set of ethics, you would turn that down, and move on. This segregated, what did you call that? Segregated fund?
So,
Can you tell me just real quick what that is?
so again, a segregated fund is, I gotta find where I had read that in here, actually. Now, where did we go? It would be a political party or groups will collect money and then redistribute that money to candidates or campaigns.
Oh, I see.
Which they-
I see.
yeah.
I see. So it would
So
be.
they can collect more money, for instance, than I can,
I see.
right?
So,
But yet
yeah.
political, so I'm gonna just be really, my own political party is gonna not like me telling you this, but you can send thousands of dollars to the party, but I have campaign limits, right? So you can't, so you might hit that limit that you send to me. So then you go way above that and say send $10,000 to the political party.
Mhm.
The party can send money back to me, and they don't have a limit on what they send to me. Does that make sense? So actually the money, you hit your limit directly to me, but you can send money to the party and then it can come back to me, and now you've gone over the limit, but it's not reported that way.
And I would assume that that person who contributes that large amount of money can suggest where it goes too.
They might be able to. I'm not so sure it works
Well, I mean,
that
they
way
can
so
suggest,
much.
but-
Yeah, they might
But
suggest
there could be
that.
some pressure there,
But
maybe.
either way, I'm just telling you that's how it works, and we're all playing by the rules. That's just the rules. I'm just saying the rules should change so that we all have to abide by different rules.
Before we get to the end today, number one, are you seeing any interest on the Republican side of the fence?
No, but that's not unusual under the current world we live in. We don't get Republican support for what we propose, bills we propose, and we don't get hearings. It's just, you've heard me complain about
Yeah,
that for a long
yeah.
time, but it's the world we live in. So we will address that if we can address gerrymandering and that issue down the road.
Okay. Well, that'll be a discussion maybe next time. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I want to thank Jeff for coming in today, even though we had to swim in
Yeah.
due to the rain. And I certainly want to, again, thank you. And please look forward to maybe another show next month if we have a chance to get together.
That's
So-
right.
So have a good day, and thanks again.